There's a lot of hype and excitement around the new Bose NC 700s, but the Bose QC35 Series 2 aren't going anywhere. Actually, the Bose QC35s got a secret hardware refresh last fall so that they can support Bose AR, just like the NC 700s. Now, personally, I do think Bose AR is still very much in its infancy, and it's one of those products that you'll maybe play around with for 20 minutes and then forget about. But if you're thinking about picking up a pair of Bose headphones, you may be very well trying to decide between picking up the alien-looking Bose NC 700s or the tried and tested Bose QC35s. So, here are the main differences between these two headphones. For starters, yeah, we gotta talk about the price, because the NC 700s retail for $400, whereas the QC35s retail for $350. So you're probably wondering if it's worth spending the extra $50. If you want to pick up either of these headphones, they'll be linked down below, and if you want to learn more about either of these headphones, please watch their full reviews, because we're only going to be covering the key differences. Now, the NC 700s have a radically different design from the Bose QC35s. Personally, I don't mind how the NC 700s look, but I do prefer the QC35's body for a few objective reasons. First off, the headband on the Bose QC35s have less of a rounding effect than the headband on the NC 700s, and the Bose QC35s can be collapsed smaller than the NC 700s, meaning that their carrying case is slightly smaller as well. And personally, I think that if you plan on flying or commuting a lot with your headphones, having the smallest possible carrying case just makes life a little easier. But also, I do find the QC35's body is more rugged and durable than the NC 700s, which again is something you might want to consider if you plan on traveling a lot with these headphones. And when it comes to fit, personally, I also prefer the QC35s. Now, both of these headphones have Bose's trademark super spacious ear cups with great feeling leatherette, meaning that they're both going to be able to accommodate most ear types. But the Bose QC35s are more comfortable to wear than the NC 700s because of how they rest on your head and because of their reduced clamping force. The NC 700s are fairly comfortable in their own right, but they do have considerably more clamping force. I can wear these headphones for long periods of time, but I constantly have to readjust them, and I just never forget they're there, like the QC35s. So, to be on the safe side, I don't think the NC 700s are big head approved. Plainly said, if you're looking for maximum comfort, the Bose QC35s are still the most comfortable headphones on the market, period. Now, when it comes to tech specs, the NC 700s charge via a USB-C port, whereas the QC35 is charged via a micro USB port. Now, if you're an Android user, the NC 700s charging via a USB-C port is great, because this way you can charge your phone and headphones with the same cable. But if you're an iPhone user, then it doesn't really matter what port either of these headphones use, because you're still going to have to use a different cable to charge your phone and headphones. But the advantage of having a USB-C port on the NC 700s means that you're going to get slightly better fast charging than on the QC35s. If you plug in the NC 700s for 15 minutes from a dead battery, they're going to get you 3.5 hours of playback time, whereas the QC35s are only going to get you 2.5 hours of playback time from that same 15-minute charge. And when it comes to overall battery life performance, that's really the only difference between these two headphones, because they both only have a 20-hour battery life, which is slightly below average for premium ANC headphones in 2019. But thankfully, both of these headphones can be connected to two devices at the same time, which means if you're a power user, you can easily hot swap from one device to another. Now, this is still a big deal in 2019, because simultaneous multi-device connectivity still isn't a standard feature on all headphones. But when it comes to audio codecs, both of these headphones only support SBC and AAC, and unfortunately, neither one of them supports aptX. But now, let's talk about the active noise cancellation on these headphones. Like I've said in the past, I've never really liked the ANC on the QC35s, because to me, they have a lot of cabin pressure, which make them very comfortable for me, and sometimes leads to headaches. Now, this may not be the case for everyone, but it is the case for me and a good chunk of other people. But the active noise cancellation on the NC700s have significantly less cabin pressure than the QC35s, and I can actually use it this time around. And overall, the active noise cancellation on the NC700s does perform slightly better than the QC35s. But so that you can see for yourself, we're going to jump into an ANC test. Like you may have just seen, in general, both of these headphones block out roughly the same amount of noise across the board, but the NC700s do manage to block out a little more. It's not a noticeably huge difference, but for all intents and purposes, the main difference between the ANC on these headphones is the reduction of cabin pressure found on the NC700s. But a feature that the NC700s have that the QC35s simply don't is an ambient mode. Through Bose's app, you can go in and select how much noise you want your headphones to pump in. And having an ambient mode is great because this way you can still be aware of your surroundings when you're walking around the city, or you can do what I do and have ambient mode turned on when watching movies with your headphones, so that if someone calls your name, you can still hear them. Now, the NC700's ambient mode is different from just being able to choose between having the QC35's ANC level set to high, low, or off, because the NC700s are actually picking up ambient sound with their microphones and playing that through the headphones. So having the ambient mode on the NC700 set to its highest level is kind of like having open back headphones in the sense that you can clearly hear everything around you. But the NC700s also have a conversation mode where if you press and hold on their ANC button, they'll automatically pause your music and pump in all of the ambient sound around you. So this way, you can quickly talk to someone without having to take your headphones off, like this. Personally, I think that this is a very neat feature to have, and I also think it's sorely lacking on the QC35s. And I also think that the way you activate conversation mode on these headphones is better than Sony's Quick Attention, because once it's activated, you're hands-free, unlike the Sonys where you have to keep pressing on the touchpad. But now let's talk about how these headphones actually sound, because they're not going to please everybody, but they are going to make some people very happy. For the most part, the NC700s and QC35 sound identical, and neither one of them allow you to directly change their EQ. Both of these headphones shoot for a neutral sound signature, but they do put an emphasis on the mids and vocals. Now, the bass on both of these headphones does resonate nicely, but you don't really physically feel it. So if you're someone that likes to have their headphones rattle their head when you're listening to music, then neither one of these are really going to do it for you. Again, these headphones are shooting for a neutral sound signature for easy listening so that you can appreciate those subtle differences and pick out individual instruments. But the last major difference between these two headphones that I feel could be a major differentiating factor for some people is that the NC700s now use a touchpad to control your music playback, whereas the QC35s have physical buttons. Now, after you get used to using the NC700's rather small touchpad, overall, it is very accurate and easy to use. Double tap to play or pause, swipe up or down to adjust the volume, and swipe front or back to skip through your music. Very rarely does the touchpad not register any of my inputs. It's a good touchpad period, because there are some other touchpads out there that are just awful. But at the end of the day, I know some people just don't want to deal with touchpads and they'll just gravitate towards the QC35's buttons, which for all intents and purposes is even easier to use than the NC700's touchpad, specifically adjusting the volume. Well, finally, let's talk about the microphones on these headphones. For starters, Both of these headphones have decent microphones for phone calls, but the microphone on the NC700s is slightly better. Now, it's not as good as AirPods, but it is one of the best microphones on ANC headphones. But overall, if I had to choose between the NC700s and QC35s, I would go with the NC700s purely because of the reduced cabin pressure and their active noise cancellation and their ambient mode features. But I would do so reluctantly because I would be giving up the superior comfort and durability found on the QC35s. Personally, all I want from Bose right now is the QC35's body with the NC700's tech specs. Sprinkle in a 30-hour battery life and Bose has a recipe for domination. Personally, I think that if you already have the QC35s, you don't have to rush out an upgrade, and in the back of my mind, I'm still hoping that we'll eventually see the Bose QC45. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.